Every spring, a single pine tree launches billions of armored capsules into the atmosphere. So many that weather radar reads them as rain, and satellites catch them from orbit. Each one is 45 microns wide, fitted with 2 air sacs for lift, and wrapped in a polymer so tough it survives sulfuric acid. Inside that shell is a molecule your own body knows intimately. But the real story isn't what pine pollen contains. It's the biological safe that keeps it locked away, even from you. The archive is open. That yellow dust you hose off your driveway every April is one of the most sophisticated dispersal systems in nature. And the very first thing it does is overturn something you've believed every spring of your life. Here's something almost everyone gets backwards, and once you see it, the whole spring looks different. That yellow film on your car, your porch, every puddle in the neighborhood, your eyes water, and the connection feels obvious. That's the stuff wrecking your sinuses. Almost certainly not. The grains are big, 45 to 65 microns, and heavy. They go up, then they come down. They don't hang in the air for hours the way the real troublemakers do. Birch pollen? Around 22 microns. Ragweed? About 20. Small enough and light enough to slip past your nasal defenses and trip the whole immune cascade. And you never see them. They leave no yellow film on anything. But they ride the same spring air as pine at the same time. So pine, big, visible, impossible to miss, takes the rap for what the invisible grains are doing. And the dust you brush off your sleeve carries a secret almost nobody knows. A geographic fingerprint so precise that forensic scientists read it like a barcode. Pollen profiles have placed suspects at crime scenes, matching the species mix on a pair of shoes to the one field where a body turned up. Your windshield is dusted with location data. But those billions of grains were never built for your airways. They were built for the wind. A single mature Scots pine puts out thousands of male cones each spring, each packed with 1 to 2 million grains, and almost none will ever reach a female cone. It's reproduction as a numbers game at a scale that's hard to hold in your head. Blanket the whole landscape. Let probability do the rest. During peak bloom across the Carolinas and Georgia, whole forests build pollen clouds dense enough that NOAA weather radar tracks them rolling across the map like a storm front. The waste isn't a flaw in the plan. The waste is the plan. But the real engineering isn't in the storm. It's in the single grain. And it solves a problem so completely that it accidentally creates a new one. The wall of every pine pollen grain is made of a material called sporopollenin, and it survives sulfuric acid. That's just the headline. Industrial solvents, digestive enzymes, geological burial under tons of rock for tens of millions of years. None of it cracks the wall. Palynologists use acid baths as routine prep because acid dissolves everything in a sample except the sporopollenin shell. What's left is a perfect, empty ghost of the grain, still readable under a microscope after sitting in sediment since before the dinosaurs died. It has outlasted entire species. It will outlast us. So what happens when this little fortress hits your stomach? Hydrochloric acid at a pH of 1.5 to 3. Not much. The capsule rides through your digestive tract like a submarine with the hatches welded shut, and most of what's inside passes through you untouched. Nature built a delivery vehicle so good at protecting its cargo that almost nothing can get the cargo out, including you. The modern fix is brute force. Cracked cell wall pollen, shells shattered before packaging. Now the contents are reachable, but the moment you breach the armor, you lose what the armor was for. Exposed to light, heat, and oxygen, the compounds inside start to degrade. Sealed, it's protected, but unreachable. Cracked, it's reachable, but perishable. There's no free lunch inside a pine grain. But there's a third door, the oldest one. Alcohol. A tincture at 65 to 70% ethanol slips through the sporopollenin wall without destroying it and pulls out the fat-loving compounds, including the steroids, leaving the fortress standing. This isn't a modern biohack. Li Shizhen described medicinal pine pollen in his Compendium of Materia Medica in 1596. 4 centuries before anyone had the word sporopollenin, somebody had found the chemical back door into a vault they couldn't even see. So what's behind the door? What makes people pay $30 to $50 for 2 ounces of tree dust? This is where the story leaves botany for the strangest coincidence in the whole episode. Except it isn't a coincidence at all. In 1971, chemists in Zagreb tried something nobody had thought to do. They ran pine pollen through the same tests used to measure hormones in human blood. What came back read like a page from an endocrinology textbook. Testosterone, epitestosterone, androstenedione, the male androgens, inside tree dust. They published it, repeated it through the decade, and found the same molecules in black pine. The strange headline is true. The male hormone shows up in the male pollen of a pine. 2 honest footnotes, because they make the story better. Those early measurements used the instruments of their time, sensitive enough to find a hormone, but not always sharp enough to tell it from a close molecular cousin. And when modern labs point mass spectrometry at commercial pine pollen, they don't always get a clean confirmation. At least one came back with nothing. So the hormone is real enough to keep reappearing for 50 years and elusive enough to vanish under the sharpest tool we own. Hold on to that. Now the number that decides everything. When testosterone is found, it runs around 80 nanograms per gram. A typical supplement dose is 5 grams, 400 nanograms, less than half a microgram. Meanwhile, your own body, if you're an adult man, makes 3 to 10 milligrams of testosterone a day. 3 to 10 million nanograms. Your body outproduces the entire pollen dose by something between 7,000 and 25,000 to 1, before breakfast, without trying. Contains testosterone is true the way contains gold is true of seawater. Technically correct, and practically you'd drown before you collected a ring. No human trial has ever shown pine pollen move a man's blood testosterone. Not one. And this is where most people stop and miss the actual wonder. Because the real question was never, will this raise my testosterone? It's the one almost nobody asks. What is a human sex hormone doing inside a pine tree at all? The answer is older than any supplement label. Steroids aren't a human invention. They're a 4-ringed carbon scaffold life, locked in more than 1 billion years ago, before there were animals and plants to split the inheritance. In us, that scaffold becomes cholesterol, cortisol, estrogen, testosterone. In the pine, the same starting material becomes brassinosteroids, The growth hormones that tell the tree when to divide a cell, when to reach for light, how to brace in a storm. Same ancient workshop, different products off the line. Testosterone is just what spills onto the floor while the tree builds something else. So the tree didn't reinvent your hormone. That would be coincidence. It's inheritance. You and a pine run the same billion-year-old chemistry, forked from an ancestor so distant neither of you would recognize it. The testosterone in that yellow dust is a family resemblance. The tree had every reason to make it. None of them have anything to do with you. What brought you to pine pollen, by the way? The testosterone story or something else? Some of the best threads on this series start in the comments. And here's the detail that gets me. 2,000 years before anyone could name one of these molecules, someone in China looked at this same yellow powder and filed it in the highest tier of medicine. No instruments, no vocabulary, and they landed close enough to something real that it should make you think twice about waving off the people who worked before the machines. Around 2,000 years ago, an unknown compiler, tradition credits the mythical divine farmer Shen Nong, cataloged pine pollen in the oldest surviving Chinese pharmacopoeia in the highest of 3 tiers. Substances gentle enough to take daily for a lifetime. Prescribed for fatigue, aging, depleted vital essence. Read that through a modern lens, and it's tempting to hear hormones, but that's our vocabulary, not theirs. 1,000 years later, it had migrated from the pharmacy to the kitchen. Tang Dynasty cooks in Yunnan dusted it on sticky rice cakes to keep them from clumping. Pine flower cakes, still made today. In Korea, the same gold powder went into dasik, pressed honey sweets for aristocratic tea ceremonies. Medicine in one culture, cuisine in another, ceremony in a third. Then, across the world, winter, 1535. Jacques Cartier's expedition is frozen on the St. Lawrence River. 25 men are already dead of scurvy, and the rest are going. The Stadacona people show the crew how to brew a tea from the needles and bark of a tree they call aneta, likely white pine or white cedar. The crew drinks it. The crew recovers. The active ingredient, we now know, was vitamin C, in a dose that must have looked like sorcery to men whose teeth were falling out. Not the pollen, the needles. But it's the moment a pine walked into the Western medical record and saved a French expedition on the way in. Fast forward to our century, and the loop closes. An American herbalist, Stephen Herod Buhner, ties the old Chinese tradition to those Yugoslav steroid measurements in a 2007 book. And the online supplement market does the rest. $30 to $50 for 2 ounces. Somewhere in the retelling, contains trace androgens, hardened into contains bioidentical testosterone. The arithmetic never made it onto the label. 2,000 years of use, 0 human trials. The intuition ran millennia ahead of the proof. Here's where the pine's chemistry turns from wonder to caution, and it's the exact same chemistry. The flavonoids that make it a decent antioxidant, quercetin, camphorol, also show weak estrogenic activity in the lab. So at high doses, you're adding microandrogenic and microestrogenic compounds at once, and nobody knows which wins. No human study has measured the net effect. Anyone on hormone-sensitive medication has reason to treat it with respect, not because there's evidence of harm, but because there's an absence of evidence either way. Those same trace androgens put it in the not for developing systems column, children and teenagers. And it contains vitamin K, which promotes clotting. On a blood thinner, that's a real interaction. Not a crisis, just pharmacology. The most common mistake is a perfect triple. Cheap pollen of unknown origin, cell walls intact, brewed as a hot tea. Unverified source. Armor still sealed, so most of it passes through you. And hot water as the wrong solvent. It pulls out water-soluble vitamins while leaving the fat-loving steroids, the whole reason people buy it, locked inside the wall. A cup of the wrong fraction. If you're going to use it, work with the chemistry. Cracked wall powder, 1 to 2 teaspoons a day, in a smoothie or warm water below 200 degrees. Store it sealed, dark, and cool, and use it within 3 to 4 months of opening. For a tincture, 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon under the tongue twice a day. The alcohol slips past the wall, and the sublingual route skips the first pass through your liver. A little fat helps carry it across. What helps? Fat, time, darkness. What ruins it? Boiling water, sunlight, and a jar left open for months. Strip away the supplement story, and what's left is stranger than the label. A molecule that sounds like it came from your own bloodstream, made by a tree for reasons that have nothing to do with you. A capsule engineered so well, it defeats the one person trying to open it. The pine wasn't hiding a miracle. It was hiding something more interesting. The truth about what it actually is. I keep a jar of cracked wall pollen in my kitchen. A teaspoon in a smoothie a few mornings a week. Not for the testosterone. You know the arithmetic now. I keep it for what it actually is. The reproductive dust of a lineage that was already ancient when the last dinosaurs died. Packed in a vault that will outlast everything I own. Next weekend, we open the archive on a fungus that grows on birch trees in cold so brutal most living things quit. And the chemistry inside it is unlike anything else in the fungal kingdom. If you made it this far, you're the reason this series exists. Subscribe, and I'll see you next weekend.